Prince played every instrument on their first record. He hired a fake producer name to hide it, let 5 men take the photo, and let the world believe they'd made it themselves. That was the deal. Behind the gold records, the television specials, the sold-out arenas, there was an industry where the people singing the songs sometimes had the least power over them. Contracts became traps. Royalties disappeared into other men's accounts. Careers ended not from a lack of talent, but from a signature nobody explained. This is R&B Pulse Track. 10 true stories from the decade soul music paid for its own success, in ways the fans never saw. Number 10, Marvin Gaye, Sexual Healing, 1982. By 1980, Marvin Gaye, the voice behind What's Going On and decades of the Motown sound itself, was living in Ostend, Belgium, a self-described tax exile fleeing financial and legal troubles years in the making. The pressure came from every direction. The IRS owed millions in back taxes. His ex-wife Anna owed alimony from a bitter 1975 divorce that had forced him to record an entire album, Here, My Dear, just to satisfy the settlement. And Motown itself, whose contract still bound him, ultimately requiring $1.5 million plus a $600,000 advance just to release him. By 1980, Gaye had filed for bankruptcy, his cocaine addiction deepening alongside the pressure, reportedly owing the IRS $4.5 million in back taxes alone. Working from Belgium, isolated from the Motown machine, he recorded Midnight Love, producing Sexual Healing, a genuine comeback, even as his finances remained in near-total collapse. On April 1, 1984, one day before his 45th birthday, Gaye was shot and killed by his own father. He died without a will, leaving an estate reportedly $9.2 million in debt. The scale of his debt and the Motown buyout are documented across legal retrospectives of his estate. How much traces to the industry versus his own addiction and mismanagement is harder to separate. Both were real, tangled together. Marvin Gaye gave soul music its conscience. The industry he helped build never quite gave him, in return, the stability his talent should have guaranteed. Number 9, Jackie Wilson, Your Love Keeps Lifting Me, Higher and Higher, 1967. Your love lifting me higher. Before Michael Jackson, before James Brown's own peak showmanship, there was Jackie Wilson, Mr. Excitement, whose acrobatic performances made him one of the most electrifying live acts in American music. Signed to Brunswick Records under manager and label head Nat Tarnopol, he racked up more than 50 R&B chart hits, becoming a direct inspiration for the generation of soul performers who followed him. Tarnopol wasn't just Wilson's label boss, he was his personal manager too, controlling both his career decisions and the accounting of what he was owed, with almost no independent check on the conflict of interest. Wilson, focused overwhelmingly on the stage, trusted him with the business side entirely. In the mid-1970s, federal prosecutors indicted Tarnopol for mail fraud and tax evasion. The indictment alleged Brunswick shipped hundreds of thousands of dollars of Wilson's records without recording the sales, and that Tarnopol owed him at least $1 million in royalties. Tarnopol was convicted in 1976. An appeals court overturned it on procedural grounds, but explicitly found the fraud evidence credible. The tragedy compounded first. In September 1975, Wilson suffered a stroke on stage, deep in debt to the label that had allegedly cheated him. He remained incapacitated for over 8 years, Unable to pursue the case judges believed he'd win, and died January 21, 1984. Still owed the royalties Brunswick's own indictment said were his. The federal indictment and appellate findings are matters of public record. Only restitution was never resolved, because Wilson never got the chance to collect it. Number 8 New Edition, Candy Girl, 1983. In 1982, 5 teenagers from Boston's Orchard Park projects, Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, Bobby Brown, Ronald DeVoe, and Ralph Tresvant, were discovered by manager and producer Maurice Starr. Their debut single, Candy Girl, topped the R&B charts through Starr's Streetwise Records, and New Edition suddenly found themselves the biggest new act in black teen pop, before most of them could legally drive. Starr held nearly total power over the boys who made him famous. As their manager, producer, and label head, he controlled every dollar generated by the record and tour, negotiating contracts and deducting expenses before the group ever saw a check. They were minors with no independent legal representation, entirely dependent on the man who discovered them. What they found after a grueling national tour became infamous. Despite a platinum record, the group received a total of $1.87 each, after Starr deducted what he called legitimate expenses. Furious, they fired him in late 1983 and sued, in a case later cited as Bell v. Streetwise Records. The One signed with MCA under real financial oversight, and their next album went double platinum, launching Bobby Brown's solo career and later Bell Biv DeVoe. But royalties from Candy Girl itself were largely unrecoverable once Streetwise shut down. The payout and lawsuit are corroborated across the group's own interviews and Starr's own record, which never seriously disputed the underlying facts. 5 kids worked a national tour for a gold record and opened their mailboxes to find less than $2 waiting. Number 7 James Brown, Living in America, 1985. In 1985, James Brown found himself with an unlikely late career smash, Living in America, from Rocky IV, climbing the pop charts and introducing him to a new generation. He was, by every commercial measure, in the middle of a genuine comeback. But behind it, his finances were quietly collapsing under weight that had built for a decade. The pressure wasn't a label executive, it was the IRS, and the network of financial advisors and business partners who'd managed his money for years. As far back as 1975, the IRS claimed he owed millions in back taxes. By the 80s, that debt had compounded alongside loan defaults and disputed royalty arrangements. Those close to him described a man whose extraordinary generosity toward his staff combined with chronically poor financial oversight. That turmoil detonated publicly in 1988. High on PCP and carrying a shotgun, Brown burst into a seminar next to his Augusta office. Police pursued him across 2 states before shooting out his truck's tires. He was convicted on assault and weapons charges and sentenced to 6 years, 3 years after performing for a global movie audience. In 1989, corrections officials found $40,000 hidden in his prison cell, seized immediately by the IRS. He was released in 1991 after roughly half his term. The arrest, conviction, and IRS seizure are documented in contemporaneous news coverage. What caused the personal collapse itself, addiction, grief, mismanagement, remains genuinely disputed among his own associates. What's certain, one of music's most influential figures, at the height of a comeback, hauled from a jail cell over debts others helped him accumulate. Number 6. Rick James, Super Freak, 1981.
She's a very kicky girl.
By 1981, Rick James had turned Motown into a funk powerhouse it hadn't been in years. Street songs went platinum, and he wasn't just a hitmaker for himself. He wrote and produced for Teena Marie and the Mary Jane Girls, arguably Motown's most valuable working artist of the moment.
The kind you don't take home to mother. She will never.
The power in this story sat with Motown president Jay Lasker, who controlled where the label's promotional money actually went. James depended entirely on that machinery. For years, the math favored him, until Motown's priorities shifted toward a new commercial obsession with wider crossover appeal and a cleaner image than James's raunchy persona, Lionel Richie.
Never let your spirits down. Once you get it off the street.
In 1982, James confronted Lasker directly about what he felt was inadequate promotion, publicly complaining that Motown was pouring its weight behind Richie instead. It marked a turning point. Where James had once been the label's funk crown jewel, he now competed for attention against artists Motown saw as safer bets.
Wow, no. The kind of girl you read about.
His album sold in diminishing numbers through the rest of the decade. By 1990, MC Hammer sampled Super Freak without permission for a global smash, before the royalty dispute was resolved, a final reminder of how little control he'd kept over his biggest hit.
They like to taste us. Every time we meet. She's alright.
The Lasker confrontation and promotional shift are documented across multiple biographies. How much of the fall was label politics versus James's own substance abuse is harder to isolate. Both were likely compounding factors. What's certain? A label that once built campaigns around him quietly redirected its resources elsewhere. If you're finding this channel for the first time today, consider hitting subscribe and tapping that notification bell, because these stories only get heavier from here. Now, back to the countdown, because the next artist's fight with her own record label didn't just change her career, it changed the law. Number 5, Teena Marie, Square Biz, 1981. In 1976, an unknown 20-year-old named Mary Christine Brockert signed to Motown with no professional credits to her name. As Teena Marie, working closely with labelmate Rick James, she became one of the label's most consistent R&B hitmakers by the early 80s, one of Motown's few white artists working almost entirely within the genre, and respected for it. The power sat quietly in the fine print. Her 1976 contracts gave Motown 6 one-year renewal options on the same terms indefinitely, meaning the label could keep her bound for years without ever being required to release her music. By the early 80s, she alleged that was exactly what was happening. Songs recorded, shelved, and never released, while she remained legally forbidden from recording elsewhere. In May 1982, she told Motown she considered the contracts void. Motown sued for breach of contract, then sought a court injunction blocking her from recording for Epic Records, her new label. The case, Motown Record Corp versus Brockert, became one of the decade's defining artist rights battles. In 1984, a California appeals court ruled Motown's option clause didn't meet the state's minimum compensation requirements. The ruling became the Brockert Initiative, later codified into law. A label can no longer keep an artist under contract while refusing to release their work. The contract terms and ruling are public legal record. An artist who arrived with nothing walked away having rewritten the rules for everyone who came after her. Number 4, Shalamar, A Night to Remember, 1982. Shalamar was assembled by Solar Records boss Dick Griffey and Soul Train's Don Cornelius from dancers on the show itself. By 1980, the classic lineup, Jody Watley, Jeffrey Daniel, Howard Hewitt, had turned that concept into something real. Genuine hits, with Daniel's dancing helping inspire the moonwalk before Michael Jackson made it famous. By 1982, with A Night to Remember charting worldwide, they were the crown jewel of Griffey's label. Griffey wasn't just their label boss, he was their manager and sole gatekeeper to the industry, controlling contracts, advances, and the flow of money. Disputes over pay weren't new. As early as the group's second album, member Gerald Brown confronted Griffey over unpaid money and left entirely. At their commercial peak in 1983, Watley and Daniel, the group's two most visible members, walked away amid disputes over royalties and advances that had simmered for years. Watley built a huge solo career. The Shalamar that inspired a generation of dancers effectively ended that day. Decades later, Griffey's daughter began touring under the name until Watley discovered it had never been trademarked, registered it herself, and won the rights permanently in court. The unpaid royalty allegations are corroborated across multiple band history accounts, though no full public accounting of exact sums has ever surfaced. Griffey, who died in 2010, never detailed his side. What's certain, the woman who walked away over money ended up owning the name the label boss never gave up. Number 3. Betty Wright. Clean Up Woman, 1971.
A clean-up woman is a woman who...
Betty Wright was 17 when Clean Up Woman made her a star on Henry Stone's Miami labels, Alston and TK Records. Through the 70s, she became a flagship artist for an operation that also built KC and the Sunshine Band into disco royalty, a label that had grown around voices like hers.
Get all the love we girls leave behind.
Stone held enormous informal power over the Miami soul scene as TK's founder and distributor, deciding which songs got promoted and which didn't. Wright, like most of the roster, depended entirely on that infrastructure for studio access and radio reach. The conflict wasn't fraud, it was collapse. The Disco Sucks backlash of 1979 gutted TK's business almost overnight. A catalog built around dance music couldn't find airplay. In July 1981, TK Productions filed for bankruptcy, listing nearly $8 million in liabilities against barely $300,000 in assets. Stone told the court the company could no longer sell records as in the past. Wright saw it coming and had already signed with Epic in 1980, releasing a Stevie Wonder-produced album before the bankruptcy filing. Her career survived. She'd later win a Grammy producing Lil Wayne. But TK's collapse erased the infrastructure that launched her, along with the royalty structures of an entire generation of Miami soul artists less fortunate in their timing. The bankruptcy filing and Stone's court statements are documented in Billboard's contemporary reporting. How individual royalties were ultimately settled remains unclear, a common gap when independent labels collapse. Number 2. Gladys Knight and the Pips, Midnight Train to Georgia, 1973. By 1974, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Gladys, her brother Bubba, and cousins William and Edward, were one of the most beloved family acts in American music, winning a Grammy for Midnight Train to Georgia. Leaving Motown for Buddha Records in 1973 wasn't a victory lap, it was an escape from a label they felt had buried them behind bigger stars. At Buddha, they finally got gold albums and creative control. But Motown didn't let go quietly. It kept releasing old Pips recordings from the vault, including Neither One of Us, material the group said they were never properly paid for. Layered on top was a separate dispute over leaving Buddha for Columbia. Two label conflicts, stacked on each other, with the group caught in contracts written by people with every incentive to keep them locked in place. The consequence, from roughly 1978 to 1980, legal complications forced the family to record separate solo albums, unable to release music together, even while touring as one. A group built on unity, legally barred from making a record as themselves. By 1980, signed to Columbia, they recorded together again and built a decades-long comeback. The royalty complaints and forced separation are documented across multiple biographies and the group's own interviews. The precise legal mechanics remain murky even to Knight herself. What's certain? A family pulled apart on paper for years before finding their way back. Number 1. The Time. Jungle Love, 1984.
I've been watching you.
In 1981, Prince built a Minneapolis funk band to carry songs he couldn't fit on his own albums, fronting it with his childhood friend Morris Day. On stage, The Time looked like a fully formed group of 6 sharp-suited musicians, one of the best live funk bands in America, capable of upstaging Prince himself. What audiences didn't know, the record spinning at home barely involved them. The debut album's credits listed a producer named Jamie Starr. It was Prince, working alone, playing nearly every instrument himself, while Day was brought in afterward to sing guide vocals Prince had already recorded. Prince's own company, PRN Music, owned the results, and Warner Brothers let it stand. Band members later said they were paid a fraction of what the record's success justified, and were required to serve as Vanity Six's uncredited backing band from behind a curtain. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, future superstar producers, were fired mid-tour after missing a show. Morris Day left for Purple Rain, and the band dissolved before it even premiered. In 2021, when Day tried touring as Morris Day and The Time, Prince's estate produced the 1982 contract and told him, in writing, he had no legal right to the name. Album credits and Prince's own biographers confirm he played the majority of instrumentation under the Jamie Starr alias. Verified fact. How collaborative the band became by their third album is more contested. What's certain? Young men in their 20s signed away not just royalties, but their own band's name, for good.